course, the child goes to the teacher who will guide that child.
What do you mean by external moral authority? You use that expression a lot.
Materialism has to do with when you are...
Hello, it's fabulous having all of you back for another episode of the course in Values and Spirituality. I'm in the studio with Sister Denise, the author of this book. It's great to have you back. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So, Sister Denise, this is something that we have covered before, but because it arises in this chapter, I would like to take it up again. What do you mean by the words pain is mandatory and sorrow is optional? As I ask you the question, what I'm thinking of is that a lot of us spend a lot of energy in our lives trying to run as far away from pain as is possible.
Yes, that's right. That's right. The other thing that people do, generally speaking, is to be unable to separate pain, sorrow, suffering. It's all one thing. And what I found by analyzing it is that pain is definitely going to happen. But the sorrow and the suffering is to do not with the pain, but how you feel about the pain. And that's what makes it optional.
Okay, so one aspect is the pain itself, and you're speaking of all the types of pain, isn't it? I would like you to take us through all the different types of pain that you mean.
Well, of course, the most obvious is physical pain. You have emotional pain, psychological pain, social pain. I list philosophical pain.
What does that mean?
Philosophical pain is extremely painful and very, very subtle, and it has to do with a pain that you experience when your set of values clashes with the espoused realities, the system that the society holds and requires you to be part of or binds you in. And the other aspect of philosophical pain has to do with, you can also call it existential pain. When people really don't know enough about spirituality, they can think about existence in such a way that you arrive at a position where you think that the only logical conclusion is to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And that, many people arrive at that. You really need to know how to move beyond all of these types of suffering and pain, because it makes you do action that's really regrettable.
Okay, so the most obvious thing that comes to mind is that as humans, when we experience any type of pain, our first reaction is to numb the pain as soon as possible and numb it in such a way that it doesn't come back ever.
Well, that doesn't work. There's another of the pains that's a really big one, and that is financial pain.
Yeah, of course, one cannot ignore that. So, Sister Denise, because pain is so painful, we do not have a system for managing it. We numb it, like I just said. We run away from it. We use all sorts of things to make it disappear. But we do not turn around and have a relationship with it like you're advocating.
I think it's important to know that pain is a messenger.
I'm going to stop you there. Whenever any one of us feels pain, it always feels like punishment. And we tend to feel victimized because somewhere at the back of my mind, there's the word, I'm experiencing this, but I don't deserve it. What did I do to deserve this?
That's absolutely true. Let's look at physical pain. You get a toothache. That's a message that says you better go to the dentist because something's wrong and needs to be fixed. And if you ignore it, you're going to get into a situation that gets worse and worse, because that's a sign of infection, something like this. If you fall down, you might get a scratch or a bruise, but if you have a really big pain and a really big bruise, then that's a sign that you need to go to the hospital, because there may be a fracture, you see. So on a day-to-day level, pain is very convenient, very helpful. It lets us know we have to do something about it. There are people who are immune to pain, and they get into trouble because no messages. Other kinds of pain, you can say situational pain, perhaps, where you say, what did I do to deserve this? There is where you don't see the connection between what's wrong and you're experiencing pain. And this is where the philosophy of karma can be helpful to explain it to us. Something very painful happens to you, you come up with this thought, what did I do to deserve this? And then you have to go deep inside and try to get a feel for, what is this? Am I paying for some karma? Or am I going through a test? Or what is really going on? And when you are spiritually adept, as soon as you go inside, you get an indication from your conscience as to what this really is. And if you get a sense that, no, I'm paying for some karma, then the next thought is, okay, well, I have to endure it. If, on the other hand, you get a feeling that says, no, I think this is a test. What is this a test of? Does it mean I need to increase my level of endurance? And does it mean that I have to become more tolerant around the people that I'm with? What exactly am I being tested on? And when you have a test, it's always a preparation for what is next. So in that case, it's not a punishment, but a preparation. And so then, you know, in all cases anyway, you need to be able to take the pain. Suffering and sorrow has to do with our reaction to this. And a lot of it is because we don't agree with it, we don't approve of it, we don't accept it, and we don't know what to do with it. And our threshold of pain is low, you see. So then we can't handle it.
In your next line, you say the following: you have a choice about how you react or respond to it. You can react to pain with thoughts and feelings of sorrow. That is, you can suffer, or you can choose to transcend the pain. Tell us about transcendence.
I'll give you a personal experience. I had, for a long period in my life, maybe about 25 years, severe migraine, about 4 or 5 times a week. Very, very severe, debilitating. And you know, I reached a point where it became clear that if I continued to use medication, then I would get addicted to the medication, because these are opioids and all this sort of thing. So I started to do inner work and work with the pain. And I found that if I would surrender to the pain and absolutely not have any resistance to it at all, it would leave a kind of legacy of spiritual wisdom, very, very subtle, and then it would leave. So I found that working with pain on this level actually shifted the physical illness end of it, and I did so much inner work that my personal development went through a very rapid evolution during the period of about a couple of years. And then now I live on a completely different level. So while it was, on the one hand, extraordinarily painful and very, very long, yet to make these discoveries made me realize that pain is a great teacher.
A teacher of what?
A teacher of depth, of what's possible for the human being. There's another element of it that I also discovered when I was visiting South Africa, and I went to the prison where Nelson Mandela had been, and I was talking to the tour guides who were former inmates, and I asked them, why are there no instruments of torture in this prison? Because normally prisons are places of torture. And they told me, oh, in this prison, only those who are immune to torture can be incarcerated here. And I said, I didn't know that was possible, to be immune to torture. And they said, yes, you can. So then I thought, well, if you can become immune to torture, and it's possible, then this is something I need to know about, because sitting in migraine is not very far away from torture. And it gave me a different angle on it. You know, sometimes there are people who are in relationships that are really torture. And there are many people in some or another situation that is just unbearable. So this gave me a very different feeling about pain, and it also made me realize the value of separating out the pain itself from its effect on you emotionally, psychologically, your thinking, your feeling about it, all of that. And that took me to a very different level. And I think it's something that anyone can actually have access to, because, you know, pain is such a thing that controls you.
It does.
And you don't want to be controlled by something or someone via pain. That's a kind of slavery which really goes against your personal dignity. So when you take it as a test, a very big test, but knowing that it's possible to transcend it, brings you to a level of being that is so good, and it makes you so much value the sacredness of your life and the sacredness of yourself. It puts you on a completely different level, and it also makes you interact with people and circumstances differently afterwards. So it's a very valuable lesson.
I want to go on to your next line, which caught my attention, and I'd like you to explain what you mean by resistance. When physical, emotional, or psychological pain seem unbearable, you normally resist it intensely, and it becomes worse. Do people know that their resistance is intensifying their pain?
They probably don't, because normally when you have very severe pain and you go to hospital or you consult the medical profession, generally speaking, it's all about administration of pain medication. And there's a lot of people who die on morphine.
Mm-hmm.
So the conventional medical profession is not really, on the whole, needing to let people know that their resistance to pain intensifies it. But there are a lot of people who are specialized in chronic pain management. And these people are investigating how meditation as a practice can help you, because what you can do with meditation is all about detaching from the body, and physical pain is experienced by the soul through the body. So if you detach from the body, then that's going to minimize the pain. So this is also something that people use either together with pain medication, or even potentially instead of pain medication, because the big problem with pain medication is it's addictive.
Tell us more about the meditation practice and how it can help with the pain here. And Sister Denise, you know, because on many levels pain requires some action by the person experiencing the pain, one cannot just rely on meditation alone. If you are suffering financially, meditation doesn't cure your financial woes. If you're experiencing pain in a relationship where you need to make a decision, should I stay, should I leave, meditation may help you in part, but you still have to make a decision about the relationship. So my point is that some pain requires action and some doesn't. Could you tell us how one navigates through this quagmire in order to reach a decision as to what to do, and how you bring in meditation in order to help you to do it?
Contrary to what people would expect, meditation is also an action. You choose to detach. That's an action.
Detach what from what?
Detach yourself from the situation. You know, when you're in pain, whether it's financial pain, relationship pain, or any of these different forms of pain, being in pain means that you're in a position of psychological, emotional weakness vis-a-vis the pain, which makes you react to the situation on some level. Now, you talked about the act of coming out of a toxic relationship. If you say, okay, I really need to go into meditation so that I get some distance from the situation, so that I am completely emotionless about it and I can look at the situation dispassionately, this is going to give you the clarity you need to decide exactly how you're going to come out of the relationship and how you're going to deal with what's next. So I think I would not say that meditation is an avoidance of action, but more that it's something that is a real preparation for wise action, because you don't want to do a reactive action, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but in the light of day seems like a really bad idea. And financial pain sometimes is because a person is really living beyond their means. And in a case like that, meditation will force a person to have to see that the only reason they're in trouble is because they're living beyond their means, and what they have to do is change their lifestyle considerably. And then they won't be in that pain anymore.
Yeah. Is there something an individual can do to reduce the pain that's about to come to you? Can you manage that?
You know, when you're about to have a car crash, you can't really tell exactly what's going to happen, but you can brace yourself, you can prepare yourself to some extent. Sometimes in situations like that, time really slows down. But I think one of the things that's really helpful in this is the power to face.
What do you mean by that?
You know, I'm thinking of a situation where a person is informed by their doctor that they have a life-threatening disease, and there can be some operation which will be very painful, and they will not be able to live as they were, and that they may not have much time to live. So they're informed, and then they have to make some choices. They have to go into it, and really this thing called the power to face is so helpful, because you see, when a person is going into something they know is going to be very painful, they're afraid, and that fear can paralyze them or make them really anxious. But if you have this power to face, you go into it with willingness, with faith, with acceptance, and all of this is going to diminish the aspect of the pain that has to do with your psychological resistance and reaction to that which is about to come.
Sister Denise, how does one enlist the help of the divine when managing any type of pain? I assume you do, and I would like you to tell us how you do it.
My relationship with the divine is very connected with my practice of detachment from the body. So where there is pain...
May I interrupt you? What is quite commonplace is that a lot of people turn to God when and only when they are in pain. And I think God is used as some type of antidote to pain. So in a situation like that, which is quite global, God, please take away ... Does God intervene when we place ourselves in such a position, or how does he help as far as pain is concerned? I know that in a previous episode you mentioned that one of God's titles is remover of sorrow.
There are many instances of a person reaching an absolutely desperate condition, which is where the pain of continuing with their wrong activity, I'm thinking particularly of an addict who's really hitting bottom, the pain of continuing with that is greater than the pain of facing their situation and surrendering to God. When a person turns to God with absolute sincerity and surrender, that is the time when God will help.
Sincerity and surrender, that's very beautiful.
When a person turns to God in desperation, there's no surrender, no sincerity, still plenty of ego. God will, you haven't got, it's not bad enough yet. You haven't got there yet. But the person in desperation who sort of implores God to do something, they're not going to get what they want, because that's not what God is about. A lot of people don't realize.
Okay, in this context, tell us what God is about.
You see, the thing that has put a person in all that pain is their ego. And it's only when a person drops their ego totally, which is why the surrender and the sincerity is important. That's the only time when God can do something. Because again, there is karma between you and God. And when you come to God from a position of ego, some people have called ego initials for edging God out.
I've heard that, yeah.
So if you just drop your ego and you just say, I have no control over my situation, I just give up and you take over, then God can really help, and does. But the problem is, once you get this relief, which is a huge relief, you have to make sure that you don't bounce back into your ego, which is always a temptation.
Yeah, I would think so, because it's the devil,
Well, that's right, but you can't have the devil and God at the same time, same place, and occupying your heart, because they're mutually exclusive.
One last question. Sister Denise, in order to do what you just said one has to do, you have to be very brave. You come across as somebody who is very brave.
God really appreciates bravery, because it's a kind of faith. So bravery, yes, a very good thing.
So Denise, many blessings.
Thank you.
This is such a relevant topic to each and every one of us that I do hope that you have derived maximum benefit from today's episode. Thanks so much for lending us your ear this half an hour, and I do hope to see you again for the next episode. Take care and goodbye.